Okay, sorry I couldn't be there with you guys to do this in person. However, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a review now that you've taken the target quiz and give you a chance to just kind of go back through some of this stuff and hopefully simplify it or clear up maybe any mistakes that you had. Now, number one, I took both of your tests, and I would definitely say that the target quiz on this one was a little bit more difficult than the mastery check. So that should be a good thing for you, is to know that what's happening is that the mastery check is probably going to be a little easier for you than the target quiz was. But hopefully, even with that, you're somewhere around, hopefully you scored somewhere around like a 14 to an 18 on that target quiz, because there were portions that needed to be graded by me. But for the most part, hopefully you guys did somewhere around there. But we're going to go through a little bit of stuff here. Now, number one, with this, you need to make sure that you understand that with photosynthesis and respiration, that it is one continuous cycle. So, where you have CO, so we'll go back to our same old thing that we keep on doing over and over again, is that let's say that we have C6H12O6 plus 6O2. Okay, and then let's say that we have, we'll just put it down here, the 6CO2 plus 6H2O. Alright, so now we have to look at these two different things. Now, you're going to see, you probably saw this on the target quiz, and this is probably important for you to understand again now, is that with this, we can have an arrow going this way, and we can have an arrow going this way, of where this is a continuous cycle. Now, when the arrow is going from the sugar and oxygen to the carbon dioxide and water, we call that respiration. And if we have the arrow going from the carbon dioxide and water to the sugar and the oxygen, now we're going to call that photosynthesis. Okay, so you should have this down by now, but if you don't have it down by now, make sure that you pay attention to that and understand that. So we're going to go into the next part, which I think is pretty simple, but just in case. So in this picture, we're going to have biotic and abiotic. Now, number one, biotic, bio means life, and then A means without. So biotic means things that are living, abiotic means things that are not living. Now, the only thing that gets tricky in there is that anything that was once living is still considered biotic. So let's say that you have this dead log right here. That is still considered a biotic factor because it was once living. Alright? So there's going to be lots of biotic things in this picture. So we've got the log, we've got the turtles, we got the flower, we've got the cattails, we've got the grass, we've got the lily pads, we've got the bugs, we got the fish, we got the frog, the raccoon, the deer, the hawk, okay, the trees. We have a whole bunch of biotic stuff. And even this stuff down here is probably biotic as well, because it's probably just a whole bunch of dead stuff on the bottom of the pond. Now, on the other hand, abiotic, things that are not living, okay, or were not once living, is you would have your water, your air, then you would have your sun over here as well. So, that is biotic versus abiotic. And that part shouldn't be hard at all. Okay, the next part that we're going to go into is energy transfer within an ecosystem. Now, we've got 3 different things that we could talk about when we're talking about energy transfer. We could be talking about what we see here, which is food chains, or else if we wanted to look at the whole entire ecosystem, then we could do food webs, or if we wanted to look and see the different levels of biomass and the different levels of energy available to each different thing, well, then we're going to start looking at the energy pyramid. So, let's look at these chains first. Now, what you're going to see in these chains is that the arrows go from the thing down below to the next level. It's not who eats who, it is energy transfer. So the energy from the plant goes to the grasshopper. The energy from the grasshopper goes to the mole or something, a mouse. The energy from the mouse goes to the rattlesnake. The energy from the rattlesnake goes to the hawk. Okay? And then from here, we've got the phytoplankton. Goes to the zooplankton. The zooplankton goes to the smaller fish. The smaller fish goes to the tuna fish. The tuna fish goes to, or the mackerel, I don't know what it is. And then from there, it goes to the orca. Alright. Now, looking at that, you guys need to make sure that you understand that those arrows are going the right way. But then you also have to be familiar with the words for each one of these. So, anytime that something is photosynthetic, it is going to be at the base, and we are going to call it a producer. So producers are just anything that is photosynthetic. Then we get to, so this right here is what we would call the producer, plus these are autotrophic organisms. So these are autotrophs. Now, if we went to the next level, we would have our primary consumers. Okay? So the first heterotrophs in our thing are going to be the primary consumers. And then it just keeps on going up from there, of where we have a secondary consumer, and then we can have our tertiary consumer, and these guys up here, we would usually call them a quaternary consumer. However, we're not bothering with that, so we're just going to call these guys the apex predators of where they live. Okay? Now, if you look at this, other than the producers, and I guess if we look, everything is a consumer. But then, if we go even further, after the primary consumer, after these primary consumers right here, everything up through this part, they are all carnivores. Okay? So if we were to look at carnivores, a carnivore could be a secondary consumer, it could be a tertiary consumer, it could be an apex predator, and they could eat. So if we had this hawk could eat tertiary consumers, it could eat secondary consumers, and it could eat primary consumers. The only thing, if it's a carnivore, is it is not eating a producer. If it was eating producers, then it would have to be an omnivore. So, those are food chains. Now, food chains are not incredibly... They don't encompass an entire ecosystem, so they're probably not completely accurate. But if we wanted to be more accurate, then we would move to the food webs. And the food webs are just way more complex, but they show more accurate representation of any of an entire ecosystem. Okay? Now, we can do the same thing that we did with there. So we've got the phytoplankton right here. Those would be our producers. And then let's say that we have our copiapod. That would be our herbivore. And then from there, we could say the squid was a primary consumer. Oh no. Yeah, our herbivore would be the primary consumer. Squid would be our secondary. And then let's say that our leopard seal was our tertiary. And then we could go even further up of where we have these guys, which would be those would be like our apex predators and stuff like that. Or even if we went to humans, which I usually like to leave out. Okay? So, let's say that I gave you a question like leopard seals. What are all of the different trophic levels that a leopard seal could be? So, we have 1 arrow coming in, 2 arrows coming in, 3 arrows coming into the leopard seal. So we need to go through and we need to trace that back down here to try and figure out what it could be. So with the leopard seal, it could go from the leopard seal to the birds, to the krill, to the phytoplankton, which would make it primary, secondary, tertiary, or else we could go from that to leopard seal, bird, carnivorous plankton, copepods, and then phytoplankton, which would make it primary, secondary, tertiary, quaternary. And so you can see that I could have it just along there of where it was multiple different things. So let's say that we just take these fishes, because the fish could be secondary consumers, or it could be primary, secondary, tertiary consumers. Okay? And so you can see that you can count in different ways. And I need you to be able to do that really, really well. Okay, the last thing that you'll need to be able to do is that you'll need to be able to look at these energy pyramids and try and look at the biomass and how that would change. Now, let's say that we have this flower, that we have all of the plants in an ecosystem, and then if we take the plants from that ecosystem, let's say that weighs 10,000 kilograms. Well, after heat is lost, and after poop is lost, and all sorts of other things is lost, now as we go up to the next level, now there's only 1,000 kilograms left. So basically what we've lost is we've lost 90% of all of our biomass going from our producers to our primary consumers. And the same thing is going to happen as we go here, is that we are going to go down to, let's do that. Okay, 100 kilograms. So then as we go up to the mouse, from that point, now we've lost 90% of it again. And then as we go up to the hawk, we're going to lose that 90% again. And now all that's left is 10 kilograms altogether of biomass. So if we said this, what we would say is, alright, producers are going to have the largest biomass, whereas these would have the second highest biomass, third, and fourth. But let's say that little mousy poo here starts to eat producers as well. And then we could say, where would this little guy get more biomass from? Could he get more biomass from this or from this? And the answer would be that if he started eating the plants more, he'd be able to get more biomass that way, because less would be wasted from having to go through this extra step in the middle of where then he would just plop down here into this spot. So make sure that you think about those things, you work on the problems, and that you know your stuff. And good luck on the test, guys.